I want to bring us back to that 2018 interview then. So the two haunts you referenced then, and I'm bringing them up because it's very much informed. It's very heavily improv haunts. They gave their actors a lot of leeway.
I'm sure one of them now. Yeah.
Bloodview was one. The other was Sinister.
Sinister, yeah.
Which, if a lot of people probably didn't see Sinister because it was only around for 3 seasons.
Yeah, I don't know if it was in the same location every
year
either.
Not.
I think it bounced. So
in 2011, they were running alongside the Realm of Darkness when they were at their final location.
Yes.
They were in the parking lot.
Yep.
I think maybe in a tent or something.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that, but was not there for that.
I have a lot of sore spots over the haunt pantheon.
Yeah.
There's a number of nights over the years I've given my brother crap about, I'm like, you cost us that haunt, because my brother's notoriously slow and late to everything.
Yeah.
And we were driving back from the Flint area.
Okay.
And so we were going to pass pretty close to Pontiac. I'm like, hey, Realm of Darkness is still open, and there's a second haunt, Sinister.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, it's already late. I'm like, it's the final night of the season. Let's go. And we didn't go.
Oh.
We didn't go.
Yeah.
So the next year, 2012, I had read about Sinister in Utica. And I probably put the pieces together that they had run alongside Realm of Darkness the prior year.
Yeah.
So they would end up running in that location in 2012 and 2013, and then they disappeared.
Yeah.
Sort of. The cool thing for me was in 2009, we were up in Armada, and we visited Haunted Hollows. It was a barn haunt, and their theme was called Bobby's Nightmare. And it was a really well done barn haunt.
Okay.
And they had the actors all kind of spoke in these like guttural clicks.
Yeah.
Sounded like something they practiced.
Right.
But it added this kind of unique element of fear because you suddenly feel like you're a foreigner, like on their territory.
Right.
So a bit of like a Hills Have Eyes feel.
Yeah.
So in 2012, so I guess I should backtrack. Unfortunately, when I was planning the 2010 haunt season, doing my research, I found out that the prior December, so just 2 months after we were there, the barn burned to the ground.
Oh, jeez.
Haunt was gone. So, this night in 2012, me and my faithful sidekick head out to Utica for Sinister, having no idea that there was any connection to the barn in Armada.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
And as we walked up, I literally... This is how much of a haunt nerd I am. I stopped dead in my tracks and I point out a sign. I turn to my buddy John. I go, John, I'm like, look at that sign. And he kind of looks like, this is Bobby's Nightmare. I'm like, that was from that barn haunt we went to 3 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm like, do you think it's got to be the same people?
There's a connection here, right?
So then as we got in line and we were interacting with the queue line actor, he seemed vaguely familiar. And I was like, I think this is the same group.
Yeah.
And then the moment we got in the haunt, we encountered one of their key actors.
Okay.
And she was doing that kind of guttural language with the clicks. I was like, these are the same people.
Yeah.
What a beautiful night it was.
Yeah.
But
pleasant surprise, right?
I've never seen that level of freedom for actors. They were roaming the entire haunted house, it seemed.
Yeah. They made it work,
And to give you an idea of what you may have seen at this haunt, like you could interact with them, they would play off of you. I remember there was one room, there was some sort of creature. Let's say he was having his way with a corpse.
Okay.
And I gave him some words of encouragement, and that boy went even more vigorously. In another room the next year, you go in, and there's like a different customer being held hostage playing GTA 3.
Yeah, right.
Just weird stuff that would go. You never knew what you were going to run into.
I remember getting, duct taped together with my friends, put in it, there's a casket for one that they throw 2 or 3 of you in. And, it was a very interactive haunt and one of my favorites still to this day.
Now, if you didn't get the chance to visit it, there is a short documentary on YouTube. I think if you were just to Google, like, Sinister Haunted House Utica, you'll come across it. You'll get a bit of the flavor.
I think the YouTube... that did it might have been called Thriller Nights as well.
I think it was.
Yeah.
One of the interesting things that happened the night this was 2013. I went out there, and you remember the finish at Bobby's Nightmare.
Yeah.
So, I'm not spoiling anything because you can't go now anyways.
Right.
a strobe light room, white room, strobe light, blood splattered all over the place. And they did this kind of like very physical, violent finale where Bobby, the clown character, is just assaulting this girl. And I mean, the actor, he drags her across the floor.
Yeah.
Very physical, impressive scene. Well, we went through the haunt twice that night. And the second time I went through by myself because actually the owner, he recommended that. He's like, this one goes by himself. So I was like, all right, this will be fun. Yeah. When I get to the final room, victim's not in there. Yeah. Bobby's nowhere to be found. I'm like, what's going on here? Yeah. I walk out of the building, and in the back of a pickup truck, I see Bobby with his chainsaw, with his legs dangling over the side. I see my brother in the back pickup truck with him, attending to his foot. My brother's a nurse. Yeah. During the scene, they shattered glass on accident. Actor sliced his foot wide open, and my brother's like tending to. He's like, "You're gonna need stitches."
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So you never know what's gonna happen at a haunted attraction.
Right.
You come away with some good stories.
Right.
So, but that was an influence on the style of haunting at Deranged.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, just having that interaction, and that was the thing too. Is like you could go through twice in the same night and have a different experience.
Yep.
And that's not something that we can promise that you're going to get a completely different experience if you go through twice on a Friday.
Right.
But if you come through, with the beginning of the season and then the end of the season and then for Christmas and then for halfway, it's like you're going to be getting 4 different shows.
Yeah.
A lot of the sets are going to be the same because there's a lot more difficult to switch out. But, our actors are frequently bouncing around, and some are there some nights, some are not there. So you're getting a little bit of a different show every time you show up.
So before we continue, let's plug the event again.
Yes, halfway to Halloween at Deranged Haunt, May 9th and 10th. Box office will be open at 8:45, or if you bought online tickets, you can show up around 8:45. You can come right up until 10:30, and as long as you're there on site with your tickets by 10:30, you'll go through that night.
Now, when you're going to haunted houses, do you have kind of a time frame that you're trying to get to them at? Because I do. I have like rules I follow.
It depends on where I'm going and when I'm going.
Sure.
So if it's something local, normally not so much because they're open on an odd weekday and we're going, and that's going to be our only stop for the night.
Right.
But, when I'm making a trip out to Chicago or down to Ohio, those are pretty tight schedules. There's been times where I've hit Dent Schoolhouse in Cincinnati and then head on up to Haunted Hoochie in Columbus, and those are about an hour 50 apart from each other. So kind of got to start early at one, plan everything out, get to the next, see if we can squeeze something else in the middle. And
that's a 4.5 hour drive down to Cincinnati from our area.
Yeah, you're leaving about like 1 p.m. to try and get there around 5 or 6, get some food, be the first in line, and, hit the first haunt, and then get in and out and head up to the next.
I've got a story about Dent Schoolhouse. So my buddy John and I went in 2016. It's the first time we've been there.
Okay.
Now, a lot of times when we go on, we go 3-4 hours away from home, we're going to get a hotel and just stay overnight.
Right.
We couldn't do it. Well, no, we did, but there was a catch. I had an appointment really early in the morning.
Oh,
but it was like, this was the final weekend of the season. So it was like, we're going. We're going to make this work.
Yes.
So we gun it down to Cincinnati with plans of hitting the Dent Schoolhouse and then afterward going to Land of Illusion.
Okay. Which is in Middleton?
Middleton,
Ohio?
yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Not terribly far from Cincy, but by the time we were done with the Dent Schoolhouse, it was pretty late.
Yeah.
We needed to be up and on the road at 6 a.m.
Oh, my gosh.
I'm not an early bird. I am a night owl, so it was not fun to do that.
Yeah.
But we get out of the Dent Schoolhouse, which great haunt, by the way.
Yep.
And my buddy John, he's a very non-confrontational type, and I'm me.
Yeah.
So I'm like, there's another haunt still open. He's like, Joel, it's 2 a.m. We got to be up at 6. I'm like, yeah, but it's right down the road. When are we going to be back here?
Right.
So that was one of the few instances where I let him have the W, and I was like, all right, let's go back to the hotel and sleep.
Yeah.
But we got like 4 hours of sleep, maybe.
Yeah, at that point, it's just drive back,
and then,
right?
And then, he had to, honestly, he was often the driver. So
yeah.
And there's been many times we've gone on these long trips, and I'm like keeping an eye on him because I see him nodding.
Yeah,
John.
That's been me on a couple trips lately. And they're like over to Chicago, and it's like I'm the one who's always opting for the hotel these days. And they're like, not Now that I own a haunted attraction, I don't have to get up at 9 a.m. for work, but normally the people I'm traveling with do. So
the earlier haunting days, I'll call them BC, before children.
Oh, yes.
Very different version of myself.
Yeah.
I would not accept not hitting that last haunt of the night.
Yeah.
I would often badger my good buddy and my brother against their wishes, like,
Yeah.
we're going.
Right.
I remember in 2022, was it?
Okay.
I believe it was 2022. I have to check my notes on Horrorlust.
Yeah.
A few of us went down to Carnage in Columbus.
Yeah.
Cool haunt, a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But, a fairly long drive.
Right. Yeah.
So I always look up several other places, like you do. We were going to try and hit Distracted, but that's like in the Bowling Green area.
Yeah.
We were in that area too early. And I'm like,
Okay.
well, we can't just sit around and wait.
Yeah.
We'll try and hit it on the way back.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't able to because it was too late. But when we were at Carnage, they had some flyers after the haunt was done. And so I'm like, okay, there's this place. So we're driving back. And, one of my companions is in the back seat sleeping.
Yeah.
And I'm driving, and I'm going over in my head. I'm like, I can't believe that I'm going to accept not going to a second place. I didn't even want to say it.
Right.
Because I'm like, this is such a letdown.
Yeah.
I was exhausted. And I said to the only person who was left awake, I'm like, you think maybe we just like drive straight through and go home? Because if we hit another haunt, it's going to be another hour and a half that I'm having to keep myself awake.
Yeah.
To drive. And this past year was the first fall in a good long time that I was earnestly on the road again each weekend checking out new haunts, because again, you got kids, forget about it.
Right.
Forget it. Until they're old enough to go,
right,
it just ain't going to happen as much.
And it's probably a similar thing with Deranged as my kid, so I'm kind of stuck as well. It's like, try and get out when I can, but we haven't gotten to that point yet where I'm okay stepping away for a Saturday to go go have some fun and visit other haunted attractions.
Well, even when the years that I was acting at and then running the Why Not JC's haunted house, we would often, like, it was a scramble to find childcare. Like, if you're asking of your parents, your family, hey, can you watch my kid Friday and Saturday for like 8 hours?
Right. So maybe Sunday.
You're going to work? Oh, no. I'm going to go and scare people for free because it's so much fun.
Yeah, right.
They'd be like, so you're not getting paid for this? No, it pays my soul, though.
Right.
So I'm going to go do it.
Sometimes better, right?
Can you watch the kid or not? Like, I'm going to be off this slip.
Just don't have to give them a reason. Just like, hey, you can just watch the kid. Why? Don't worry about it.
And, for the most part, we were always successful. But there was definitely a few nights where my then 4-year-old son, 4 and a half, was put into face paint.
Hey,
like, you're going to haunt right here, buddy.
Yeah, got to do something with them, right?
People come through. I was like, they're not going to expect someone your size. I'm like, it don't even matter what you say or do.
Right.
It's going to shock them.
Yeah, that's true.
He was good for a couple scares, and then he had to be, like, put in the booth, the ticket booth, and, like, just stay here for the night. Until someone
find somebody somewhat responsible and tether them to a pole.
Dad has to go and be weird.
Yeah.
But, this past season, we got back on the road, and over the years, most of the haunts in Metro Detroit I've been to, most of them multiple times.
Yes.
So I got to the point where I was like, I'm not bothering going back to all the usual places.
Right.
I've seen some of them 7 and 8 times.
Yeah, that's kind of the point I got to as well. And as you know, there's a lot of them that don't really change much. They'll make a couple changes here and there, but, to the average customer, it's not something different.
Right.
I was like, they reoriented this room. It's like, so I entered from the right instead of the left. Okay.
You got to I feel like you got to take it 3-4 years off.
Yeah, from a lot of attractions, I agree.
Much to change.
Right. And one thing that would be different as well is if you go with a different group of people. If you have a great group of people that you like to go to haunted attractions with, sometimes I feel, even if the haunt is exactly the same, if I go with a different group of people, it's still a lot of fun because it's their first time experiencing it, or they haven't been there in several years. But, if you're just going to the same haunts with the same people in the same area, it does definitely get repetitive.
Sure, because then, like, if you go to enough, you had a pretty solid idea where the scares are coming from.
Yeah.
Years ago, I'll get back to my previous story in a minute. Years ago, this was with Lincoln's mom. Not a haunter.
Okay.
At all.
Yeah.
Didn't understand it. Didn't get it.
Yep.
But I took her out to the Woods of Darkness.
Okay.
And because I had done a video for them, so after the video, the owner at the time, Denise, she was just like, "Come out anytime you want." I'm like, "Will do."
Yeah,
Like, I will hold you to that.
right.
So we went out and take her through, and she doesn't. She has, this is a foreign world to her, which is what made it so fun for me.
Yeah.
And there was this clown in one room just sitting like a bale of hay or something. And I know it's a live actor, and it's just doing the statue routine.
Yeah.
But I start playing to it, and I'm drawing her near. I'm like, oh my God, it's working. It's working.
Yeah, right.
And then the thing springs to life, and she took it hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah.
But then, say the funny part of the story, I don't know if it was so funny at the time, she started having a panic attack and anxiety.
Oh, okay.
We came to a point. We came to a point where there was, a short vortex tunnel.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
There was also an exit door, an
Okay.
emergency
Yeah.
exit. And as I'm starting up the path, you had to go up a few stairs to get to the vortex tunnel. She goes, "Oh, well, can't we go this way to the emergency exit?" As if I don't know it's the emergency.
Right.
I go, "That's the chicken exit. No, we're not
Yeah,
going that
right.
way." But after we get through the vortex tunnel, I can see like she's kind of going into a state that may not be good.
Yeah.
So I kind of just like grab her at this point, like with my left arm, and
Yeah.
with my right, I'm walking through the haunt before the actors are appearing, and as we're turning the corner, I go, "Nope, stop!" And we just sort of plowed through
Yeah.
it. And afterwards, she's kind of like, "I'm sorry, I ruined it for you." I was like, "No, this is a good story.
Yeah, yeah.
I will tell this for
Right,
years."
it's worth it, right?
Yeah.
Especially if it's a haunt that you've already been to. Right?
Yeah.
So, like, it wasn't like, oh, this is my first time here and only time here.
It is
And,
it's absolutely a different experience with someone who has not been to many or not been to any of our houses.
Yeah, I think it's a lot more fun personally,
yeah.
especially, being on the inside of the industry at this point. It's like,
Right.
all right, well, even if I've never been to this haunt, you kind of get an idea of how people build rooms. And you're like, all right, well, there's going to be something over there. Here's a distraction, you know.
Yeah.
But we're going with somebody that's completely blind of the world and how it operates. It's always a fun time.
Haunts to me are very much like pro wrestling.
Yeah.
If you've watched long enough, you know the moveset that's coming.
Yeah,
You can
right.
see a finish coming
Yep.
sometimes.
Yep.
When they work well, it's when they put a little twist on
Yeah.
it to get those people who are even calloused to the
Right,
industry.
right. And that's something that we're always trying to update too. We're like, all right, well, we know this spot's here. Other people that have been here before know this spot's here. How do we change this spot to look the same but scare differently?
Right.
And a lot of the times we make those changes and then we're like, well, the basic scare that everybody knew worked better. Like,
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
maybe we're overestimating some people's intelligence at times.
yeah,
And you're like,
yeah.
well, you should have just left that
Probably.
hole in the wall there because it worked great. Like, we're doing too much here.
The story from last year. So yeah, me and my buddy John got back out on the road and was just prioritizing places we had never been.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have to drive a fair,
Right.
fair
road
way. So
trips.
we ended up hitting Distracted, which was fun.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that. Just they had some weird rooms. I like weird stuff.
Yeah.
And there was like a weird little, like almost like a miniature pizzeria.
Okay.
And then another room, there was a puppet operation going
Okay,
on. Like
yeah.
I like when I see rooms that are they're just bizarre. I'm
Yeah,
like, okay,
just-
these people are sickos. I like them.
Yeah, and just different when you've been to so many too.
Right.
Just something that's,
So we did that one. We did a small haunt in Monroe called Spooky's Fright Night.
Oh, I've heard great things, but I think they're a
Spooky's-
Friday and Saturdays thing. And,
Yeah.
Here we are.
Relatively short, but a really well done production, high on the interaction.
Awesome.
And
yeah,
matter of
love it.
fact, the final scene, I was fooled by the actress
Okay,
in that
great,
room. I
yeah.
was very impressed. So we did that one night, and then another night we hit Ghoul Brothers,
Okay.
House of Horrors, I believe it was called.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that was their final year at that location.
Oh,
and
gotcha,
I believe, as of right now, they're still looking for a new place.
tough, yeah.
But an excellent attraction. I think they've been there for 7 years.
Okay.
Very immersive. I mean, stuff to look at every square
yeah.
inch. The actors were into it. It put me in mind of kind of a blend of a couple of different haunts. It
Mm-hmm.
kind of felt like, and you've got to be like a haunt industry person to know these places, but it kind of felt like part Terror Town, like their
Okay.
main attraction, House of the Dead, and God, maybe like a hint of Exit 13 in there.
Okay.
It was a really well done attraction, a fun group of people. But to end the night, we went to the Chippewa Lake Slaughterhouse.
Oh yeah, I've heard that's really cool, and that's another one I haven't made it out to. It's like Cleveland area, right?
Yeah, a little bit south.
Okay,
Yep.
yeah.
That place was. It was it was excellent, but it's one of those places. I told my buddy that night. I was like, had we seen this place when we were less experienced, had we seen this place 10, 15 years ago, I'd have been dreaming about it for months.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah.
The way they immersed you in the whole atmosphere, even before you get to the haunt itself, you're kind of out in the middle of nowhere. Okay. So as somebody who lives in a metro area,
Yeah.
you go out to some of those places and you're kind of like, oh no, these hillbillies may
right,
actually be
it's
a little off here.
yeah.
They're gonna smell the city on us. They're gonna know.
Yep.
And then the queue line area, they herd you like cattle.
Okay.
They've got the large gates.
Okay.
So
yeah.
it's kind of
Awesome.
like towering
Right.
over you at times.
Yeah.
Like it feels a little claustrophobic.
Right.
And then so the haunt itself used to be a meatpacking plant.
Oh.
So
Well,
awesome.
Great use of space then, yeah.
Awesome location. Whenever you can get a building or go to a haunt that was a legitimate this or that back in the
Right.
day, it's got automatic like aesthetic and production value.
Yep.
But the haunt itself, it was really well paced. They had a few key scenes, of course, but they did this thing with their actors throughout, which I think is a good tactic. They played to the theme, but they were all dressed the same.
Okay.
They were like in coveralls, like workman outfits. So you're going through the haunt and you're seeing this same character over and over, played by all these different actors. And I just thought, like with the slaughterhouse theme, and like it's kind of a warehouse. It was really kind of creepy in a dehumanizing way. I mean, if you ever worked at a factory, if you've ever been a worker bee, it's unsettling. And like, so there's just person after person, character after character, and they're playing this same role. And it was like, this is making me upset as someone who has to go to work.
Right.
But they had, it was such a well done haunt. And there was, I don't want it because they're still operating. There was one scene that was one of the most theatrical scenes I've ever seen. And it was kind of shocking.
Okay.
And I think, you go to enough of these things, you're pretty desensitized.
Yeah.
But it was the expediency and I think the effort of the actor, the timing was just, I remember stopping in my tracks and my jaw fell up. I was like, they just did that. And I have seen this same shocking act performed at least one other haunt, maybe two.
Okay.
But not like this.
Oh, okay.
It was good.
Yeah.
And they also have a legit airplane, like part of a fuselage on the property that you go through.
Okay.
There was this giant, like, I guess it was kind of like almost like I don't want to say like a car graveyard because we were in a building.
Okay.
But it was like a spot for junk cars. And they just had multiple chainsaw characters buzzing through so it's echoing off all the metal. Awesome
cool.
place.
Yeah.
Hadn't visited a place like that and hadn't come away from a haunt like that feeling in a long time.
Yeah.
I was like, wow.
Might have to get that in.
If you can ever
Find
get
a
there,
way to squeeze that into my schedule and hope they're open Wednesday or Thursday this October.
Really cool place.
Yeah. Awesome.
All right, so let's get back to Deranged and Romulus, Michigan. We'll bring it back local here. So again, halfway to Halloween, May 9th and 10th.
Yep.
I wanted to ask you a few I guess maybe behind the scenes questions.
Yeah, sure.
Because I know there's some instances. You're working on a haunt, not sometimes by yourself.
Yeah.
So sometimes just not enough people around and things need to get done.
Right.
What's the worst injury you've sustained either working or building the haunt?
No, I broke my elbow in December.
Yeah, how did you do that?
I fell off one of our storage platforms. It was like a 9-foot platform, and I was kind of pulling a thing out of storage and just kind of kept walking backwards. And
so this was inside the building?
It was inside the building,
You fell on the cement?
Yes, fell on the cement, yeah. Broke my elbow. Still can't really straighten my arm completely, so yeah, hopefully it'll be back soon.
And you knew instantly you had to go to the hospital?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm like something's wrong here. Like, I was afraid that I had like torn something because it just felt like my forearm was mush kind of thing. Like, and I didn't really think elbow.
Yeah.
Then as it like 15, 20 minutes go by, I start swelling up. I'm like, that might be it. So
I think I've been pretty lucky over the years not to sustain any. I never had to go to the hospital.
Yeah.
Anyways, the two that stand out, one was self-inflicted. I was wearing this like ornate ring on my pinky, and just to give a little startle, I took my fist, pounded it against a wall.
yes.
I didn't realize at the time the ring had sliced my finger open. End of the night comes, lights go up. I'm like, who the hell's blood is this?
Yeah, right.
Whose blood? Who has blood on me?
Yeah.
And
And
I'm
it
like,
was yours.
I was like, oh my God, it's my blood.
Yeah.
But it's like your adrenaline's pumping. You don't always recognize
Right.
stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a handful of other instances where you get hurt, but it's nothing too crazy. Lots of splinters and slices.
Yeah, sure.
One of the ones that I got, I had somebody else put up a sign. This was probably first or second year at Deranged, where we had a crawl spot, and they decided to put the sign inside the crawl spot. And I'm like, okay, that's fine, whatever. Until I was the actor that went to bang on the outside of it and realized the screws, they just put them through plywood. They didn't put them in any studs. So, the people are crawling. I'm like, oh, I'll make a loud noise and smack this as hard as I can. Bam. And, right into a screw. So, that one wasn't pleasant. But, aside from that, there's been a handful of things here and there. I did a little bit of sliding for a while.
Yeah.
So I was like, the bumps and bruises that come along with that.
Sure.
And tucking your feet a little bit too much and finding the concrete with your ankle isn't always the best time. But